The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest structure ever built. It floated in the empty space between three galaxies, a monument to the power of the elder races. Thousands of species had gathered here for 10,000 years to decide the fate of the universe. The walls were made of living crystal that sang soft songs. The floors were carved from the hearts of dead stars. Everything about this place said one thing: we are ancient, we are powerful, and we will live forever. Humans had only been part of this council for 200 years. In a place where some species measured their history in millions of years, 200 years was nothing. It was the blink of an eye. It was a single breath. To the elder races, humans were children who had somehow found their way to the adults' table. Ambassador Han walked through the great doors and felt the weight of 10,000 eyes upon her. She was 63 years old, with hair pulled back in a simple style and eyes that had seen too much sadness. She had served as Earth's voice in this chamber for 40 years, and in all that time, nothing had changed. The delegate shifted his crystalline body, making a sound like breaking glass. He did not look at her. He never looked at her. To him, she was invisible. Took her place at the small desk assigned to humanity. It was in the back corner, far from the center where important decisions were made. The desk was old and cracked. No one had bothered to fix it. She remembered the first time humans had come to this place. They had been so full of hope. The universe was vast and wonderful, and humanity wanted to be part of it. They wanted to learn, to share, to help. They believed that kindness was a universal language. They had been so very wrong. The first great test came 60 years after humanity joined the council. A terrible sickness called the plague swept through the outer colonies. Millions were dying. The people, tall beings with silver skin and 4 arms, sent desperate calls for help. They begged the elder races to send doctors, medicine, anything. The council debated for 6 months. They argued about cost, about risk, about whether they were important enough to save. In the end, they sent nothing. But Dr. Park did not wait for the council. She was a young doctor from a small town in Korea, and she had heard the cries. She gathered a team of volunteers, loaded a ship with whatever supplies she could find, and flew into the plague zone. For 3 years, worked without rest. She studied the disease, tested treatments, and held the hands of dying patients. She caught the plague herself twice and nearly died both times, but she never stopped. In the end, she found a cure. She saved 4 billion lives. The government sent a thank you message to Earth. It was 3 sentences long. The council did not mention her work at all. When returned home, no alien came to greet her. No monument was built. She lived out her remaining years in quiet peace, tending a small garden and teaching young doctors. She never complained. She believed that helping others needed no reward. 20 years later, the crystalline swarm appeared at the edge of the Helix Nebula. They were ancient machines, older than any living species, and they consumed everything in their path. Worlds, stations, ships, people. Nothing survived their hunger. The council met in emergency session. The elder races argued and shouted and blamed each other. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to run. Some wanted to sacrifice the smaller species to save themselves. Admiral did not wait for them to decide. He was a tall man with a calm face and steady hands, the son of a fisherman from who had somehow found his way to the stars. He gathered every human ship he could find, 300 vessels crewed by volunteers who knew they might never come home. They flew into the Helix Nebula and fought the swarm for 18 months. The battles were terrible. Human ships were small and weak compared to the ancient machines. For every swarm vessel they destroyed, they lost 10 of their own. But had something the machines did not understand. He had people who were willing to die for others. People who flew their broken ships into the hearts of swarm carriers. People who stayed behind to hold defensive lines so others could escape. In the end, the swarm was broken. 147 human ships survived out of 300. Himself was badly wounded, his left arm torn away by an explosion. The species of the Helix Nebula were saved. 12 billion lives continued because humans had chosen to fight for strangers. The council gave a small medal and a formal letter of thanks. They did not invite him to speak at the assembly. They did not change humanity's status. They did not even fix the cracked desk where sat. And now, 40 years after she had first come to this place, stood to deliver her final address. She was tired, not the tiredness that sleep could fix, but a deeper exhaustion that had settled into her bones. She looked at the thousands of faces that refused to look back at her. She thought of, who had saved billions and died forgotten. She thought of, who had given his arm and his friends and received a letter in return. She thought of all the human doctors, engineers, teachers, and soldiers who had given everything to a galaxy that gave nothing back. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "We came to you with open hands," she said. "We asked only for respect, for basic kindness. You gave us contempt. You took our gifts and threw our hearts away." She paused. "We are done." The council did not respond. They never did. Han walked out of the great hall and never returned. The change did not happen in one day. It was not a loud thing with speeches and declarations. It was quiet, like the tide pulling back from a shore so slowly that no one noticed until the water was gone. On the frontier world of Prime, an official sent an urgent request to Earth. Their atmospheric processors were failing and winter was coming. Without repairs, 50,000 citizens would freeze to death within 3 months. Humans had designed those processors. Only humans knew how to fix them. The official waited for a response. He waited 1 week, 2 weeks, a month. Finally, a short message arrived from Earth's Colonial Affairs Office. It said, "We regret that no engineers are available at this time. We suggest you contact the Galactic Council for assistance." The official read the message 3 times. He could not believe it. Humans always helped. It was what they did. It was who they were. He sent the message again, marked urgent. The same reply came back. On Prime, 50,000 froze to death that winter. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. A hospital sent a request for human doctors to help with a disease outbreak. The doctors did not come. A shipping company begged for human navigators to guide their ships through dangerous space. The navigators stayed home. A research station asked for human scientists to help with an important project. The scientists politely declined. Each refusal was small. Each excuse was reasonable. There was always a good reason why humans could not help this time. But the refusals kept coming, more and more, until everyone began to notice the pattern. On Earth, a woman named Lee sat in a small coffee shop in Seoul and watched the rain fall against the window. She was 52 years old, a former teacher who had spent 20 years working on alien worlds. She had taught children how to read. She had helped families rebuild after disasters. She had given half her life to species that had never once said thank you. One day, a student had looked at her and said, "Why do you help us? Your kind is so weak. You will be forgotten when you die. What is the point of your little lives?" The student had not meant to be cruel. To him, it was simply a true statement. Humans were weak. Humans did die quickly, and they did not remember the names of weak, dead things. Had smiled and continued teaching. But that night, alone in her small room, she had cried for hours. Now she sat in that coffee shop and wrote. Her words were simple and clear. She did not call for war or revenge. She did not say that aliens were evil. She only asked one question: why do we give our hearts to those who do not want them? She posted her words on a small website. She expected nothing. Within 1 month, 2 billion people had read her question. The movement called itself the Homeward Path. It had no leaders, no headquarters, no official members. It was just an idea spreading from person to person like seeds in the wind. The idea was simple: come home. Stop giving to those who take without thanks. Stop bleeding for those who laugh at your wounds. Come home and build something beautiful for yourselves. Minyu was the most famous architect in the galaxy. He had designed the great stations of the Council, structures of impossible beauty that made even the elder races gasp in wonder. When the Helix Prime station began to crack and fail, the Council sent him an urgent summons. Minyu was 78 years old. He lived in a small house by the sea inn where he spent his days painting watercolors and playing with his. When the Council's message arrived, he read it carefully. Then he sent a reply, "I am retired." The Council sent more messages. They offered money, honors, anything he wanted. Minyu did not answer. His granddaughter asked him why he refused to help. He thought for a long time before answering. "When I was young," he said, "I built a beautiful bridge for the people. I worked for 3 years. I put my whole heart into that bridge. When it was finished, the governor looked at it and said, 'Good enough for human work, I suppose.' He never learned my name." He smiled sadly. "I am tired of giving my heart to people who think it is not good enough." 10 years passed. Human borders, once open to all, began to close. Visas became hard to get. Trade slowed. The great human universities, which had educated millions of alien students, quietly stopped accepting applications from non-humans. The Council noticed, finally. They called a special session to discuss the human problem. Some delegates were angry. How dare these short-lived creatures refuse to serve? Others were confused. Had they done something wrong? Most simply did not care. High Arbiter, a being of pure energy who had lived for 6,000 years, spoke the words that the Council wanted to hear. "Let them sulk," he said, his voice echoing through the great hall. "They are children throwing a tantrum. They will return when they realize how much they need us. They always do." The Council agreed. Humans were weak. Humans were young. Humans needed the galaxy more than the galaxy needed them. They were certain of this. They were wrong. 20 years had passed since the humans began their quiet retreat, and the galaxy was falling apart. Counselor stood at the window of his small office on Station Cygnus and watched a cargo ship drift past. The ship was dead, its engines cold, its crew long gone. It was one of hundreds of abandoned vessels floating in the shipping lanes these days. No one came to collect them anymore. Was one of the few humans who had chosen to stay in Council space. He had believed, truly believed, that he could make a difference. That if he stayed and worked hard and showed them what humans could do, the elder races would finally see, finally understand, finally change. He had been a fool. The first great collapse came to the worlds. Their crystalline bodies needed very specific temperatures to survive. Too hot and they cracked. Too cold and they shattered. For 1,000 years, human engineers had designed and maintained the climate systems that kept cities comfortable. Those engineers were gone now. They had gone home, back to Earth and the human colonies where their work was appreciated. They had tried to maintain the systems themselves, but they did not understand the technology. They had never bothered to learn. Why would they? The humans had always been there to fix things. On the great climate engines began to fail one by one. Temperatures swung wildly from burning heat to killing cold. In the first year, 1 million died. In the second year, 10 million. By the 5th year, whole cities stood empty. Their populations fled to whatever ships could still fly. The delegate came to the Council and demanded help. His crystalline body was cracked in 3 places, wounds that would never heal. "The humans did this to us," he said, his voice full of rage. "They abandoned us. They let our people die." No one answered him. They all knew the truth. The humans had not killed the humans had simply stopped saving them. The Helix Shipping Consortium was the largest trade organization in the galaxy. For 300 years, they had moved goods between 10,000 worlds. Their ships were the blood of galactic civilization, carrying food, medicine, technology, and hope to every corner of known space. But the consortium had a secret weakness. Their ships traveled through warp corridors, tunnels in space that allowed faster-than-light travel. These corridors were unstable. They shifted and changed like rivers after a storm. Flying through them required navigators who could feel the currents, who could sense the safe paths through the chaos. Only humans could do this. No one knew why. The elder races had studied the phenomenon for centuries. They had built machines and trained their best minds. Nothing worked. Human navigators had some strange gift, some ability to understand the warp corridors that no other species possessed. When the human navigators went home, the consortium tried to continue. They used old charts and careful calculations. They flew slowly and cautiously. It did not matter. Ships began to vanish. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds. Entire trade routes became too dangerous to fly. Worlds that depended on imports began to starve. The consortium collapsed in a single day. Its leaders fled with whatever wealth they could carry. Its workers were left with nothing. Watched all of this from his small office. He wrote reports to the council, explaining what was happening, begging them to reach out to Earth. His reports were ignored. He sent messages to friends on Earth, asking them to help, to send just a few navigators, just a few engineers. His friends were kind, but their answers were always the same. We cannot, we are sorry, we cannot. One night made a call to his oldest friend. They had grown up together in a small town near, had studied together, had dreamed together of traveling the stars, had returned to Earth 20 years ago when the withdrawal began. Now she was a grandmother living on a quiet hillside, growing vegetables and watching her play. Her face appeared on his screen, older now, lined with wrinkles, but still full of the warmth he remembered. "You look tired, old friend," she said. "I am tired," admitted. "Everything is falling apart here. They are dying. The shipping lanes are closed. Half the stations in this sector have been abandoned." "I know," said quietly. "They need help, they need us." She was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was gentle but firm. "Do you remember what they called us? Do you remember the names? Insects, mayflies, talking animals. They laughed at our short lives and small bodies. They took everything we offered and never once said thank you." "I remember," he whispered. "We gave them our hearts, we gave them the best of ourselves, and they threw it all away." She paused. "Why should we give them more?" Had no answer. "Come home," said. "There is nothing left for you there, come home." That night packed his few possessions into a small bag. He took one last look at the dead ships floating past his window. Then he walked to the docking bay and boarded the last transport to Earth. Behind him, Station Cygnus began its slow descent into darkness. Within a year, it would be empty. Within 5 years, it would be forgotten. The council was still meeting, still arguing, still blaming everyone but themselves. They did not notice the lights going out around them. 50 years had passed since Ambassador Han walked out of the Great Hall, and the Galactic Council was dying. The chamber that had once held thousands of delegates now echoed with emptiness. Whole sections of seating had been closed off, covered in sheets of cloth like furniture in an abandoned house. Of the 600 species that had once called themselves members of the council, fewer than 200 remained. The rest had collapsed, fled, or simply faded away into history. High Arbiter floated at the center of the chamber, his body a shifting cloud of living light. He was the 4th High Arbiter since the humans left. The first had died when his power grid failed. The second had been killed in food riots. The third had simply vanished, taking a ship into the darkness and never returning. Looked at the empty seats and felt something he had never felt before in his 3,000 years of life: fear. "We must bring the humans back," he said, his voice trembling with the weight of those words. The remaining delegates stirred. For 50 years they had told themselves that this day would never come. They had believed their own lies. The humans were weak. The humans were nothing. The humans needed the galaxy more than the galaxy needed them. Now the truth sat before them like a corpse at a feast. A delegate rose, her silver skin dull and cracked with age and stress. "How?" she asked. "They have closed their borders. They do not answer our messages. They do not want us." "We will go to them," said. "We will send our finest delegates. We will offer them everything they ever asked for and more." "And if they refuse?" Light flickered. "They must not refuse. If they refuse, we are lost." The delegation was assembled with great care. Himself would lead it, along with the highest representatives of each surviving species. They carried gifts, rare minerals, ancient technologies, works of art that had taken centuries to create. They prepared speeches of apology, carefully written by the best minds that remained. They traveled to the edge of human space and sent a message requesting permission to enter. For 3 days they waited. Their ships floated in the cold darkness, surrounded by the lights of human stations and patrol vessels. The human space was bright and busy, full of life and movement. It was a shock to see after the dead emptiness of Council territory. On the 4th day, a single human ship approached. It was small and simple, nothing like the grand vessels the Council used for diplomatic missions. A voice came through the communication channel. "This is Border Commissioner Shin. You have 5 minutes to state your business." Had prepared a long speech. He had practiced it for days, choosing each word with care. But when he heard that flat, uninterested voice, his carefully planned words fell apart. "We have come to apologize," he said. "We have come to ask for your help. Our civilization is dying. Our people are suffering. We need you." There was a long silence. "You have 4 minutes left," the voice said. Spoke faster. He offered trade agreements that would make humans the richest species in the galaxy. He offered seats on the council, real seats at the center of power. He offered to build monuments to human heroes, to rewrite history books, to declare holidays in honor of Earth. He offered everything he could think of, his light flickering with desperation. When he finished, there was another long silence. Then a face appeared on the screen. Shin was 94 years old. Her hair was white as snow, her face lined with deep wrinkles. But her eyes were sharp and clear, and they held no warmth. "Finished?" she asked. "Please," whispered. "We will give you anything, everything." Looked at him for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was calm and steady. 200 years ago, we joined your council with open hearts. We asked for nothing but friendship. You gave us a broken desk in the back corner and told us to be grateful for it. "We were wrong," said quickly. "We know that now. 150 years ago," continued as if he had not spoken, "Dr. Park saved 4 billion lives. She worked until her body broke. She asked for nothing in return. Do you know what she received? A 3-sentence thank you message. No funeral, no monument, not even her name in your history books. We will build her a monument," promised. "The greatest monument ever." 120 years ago, Admiral led 300 ships into the Helix Nebula. He lost half his fleet saving species that had never spoken kindly of Earth. He lost his arm. He lost his friends. He received a small medal and a letter. Leaned forward, her old eyes burning. "We gave you everything. We gave you our doctors, our engineers, our navigators, our soldiers. We gave you our children and our dreams, and you threw it all away. You called us insects. You laughed at our short lives. You took and took and took, and you never once, not once thought to say thank you." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "And now, only now, when your worlds are dying and your people are starving, you come to us with your gifts and your promises. You offer us seats at your table." She shook her head slowly. "We do not want your table. We built our own, a better one, one where every voice is heard and every life matters." "Please," said, and his voice broke on the word. Looked at him with something that might have been pity. "Go home, High Arbiter. There is nothing for you here." The screen went dark. The delegation floated in silence for a long time. Then, slowly, They turned their ships around and began the long journey back to their dying worlds. Behind them, the lights of human space continued to shine, bright and warm and utterly unreachable. 100 years had passed since the humans left, and was the last historian of the people. She was young by the old standards, barely 200 years old, but there were no old standards anymore. The had fallen 60 years ago, its cities empty, its people scattered across a handful of dying colonies. Of the 12 billion who had once filled 100 worlds, fewer than 1 million remained. Had spent her life studying the old times. She had dug through crumbling archives and decoded corrupted data files. She had interviewed the elders who still remembered the days when the galaxy was bright and full of hope. She had pieced together the story of how everything had fallen apart. And she had come to understand the truth that her ancestors had been too proud to see. The humans had not destroyed the Galactic Council. The humans had not killed the elder races. The humans had simply stopped helping, and without their help, everything had collapsed. It was such a simple thing, such a small thing, and it had ended civilizations. Had taken her small ship to the edge of the human expanse, that vast territory of 1,000 worlds where humanity had built their new home. She had sent a message, not asking for help or forgiveness, but simply asking one question: why? For 3 days she waited. She did not expect an answer. The humans had stopped answering alien messages long ago. But on the 4th day, a reply came. The man on the screen was old, with white hair and kind eyes. His name was Park, and he introduced himself as a historian like her. "I received your message," he said. "Your question, it deserves an honest answer." Leaned forward. "Please, I need to understand." Nodded slowly. "My great-great-grandmother was Dr. Park. Perhaps you have heard of her." "She saved us," whispered. "She saved my people from the plague." "Yes, she worked for 3 years without rest. She caught the disease twice. She nearly died both times, but she kept working because she believed that life, all life, was precious." Paused, and his eyes grew distant. "When she came home, no came to thank her. When she died, no attended her funeral. Her name was not written in your histories. Her face was not carved in your monuments. To your people, she was just another human, small, weak, forgettable." "I am sorry," said, and she meant it with all her heart. "I know you are, but you must understand something." Leaned forward. "My grandmother's granddaughter used to tell me stories about the old days. She told me how humans would rush to help any species in need, asking nothing in return. She told me how we built your stations and healed your sick and fought your wars. She told me how we gave everything we had." His voice grew soft. "And she told me how your people laughed at us, how they called us insects and mayflies, how they took our gifts and threw our hearts away." "We were wrong," said. "Yes, you were," sighed. "But here is the terrible truth, young historian. We do not hate you. If we hated you, perhaps we could forgive you someday. Hatred is hot. It burns itself out eventually." He shook his head slowly. "What we feel is worse than hatred. We feel nothing. We simply stopped caring about you. Your suffering does not move us. Your apologies do not touch us. You taught us, through 100 years of cruelty, that our kindness was worthless, and we learned that lesson well." Tears rolled down Silver's face. "Is there nothing we can do? No way to make things right?" Was quiet for a long moment. "There is a human saying," he said finally. "You cannot a cake, you cannot unspeak a word. Some things once done cannot be undone." He looked at her with something like compassion. "Your ancestors took a people who gave freely and taught them that giving was foolish. You took our greatest virtue and turned it into a wound. That wound has healed now, but the scar remains, and scars do not forget." "Then there is no hope," whispered. "Not for us, not for the relationship between our peoples," smiled sadly. "But perhaps there is hope for you, young historian. You asked why. That is more than your ancestors ever did. Perhaps if your people survive, you can build something new, something better. How? I do not know, that is for you to discover. He paused. But I will give you this advice: remember us. Remember what we gave and what your people threw away. Tell your children and your children's children. Let our story be a warning. A warning against what? Against cruelty, against pride, against taking kindness for granted. His voice grew soft. The universe is cold and dark, young one. Kindness is rare and precious. When someone offers you their heart, hold it gently, because once you break it, it may never beat for you again. The transmission ended. Sat alone in her small ship for a long time, watching the lights of the human expanse shine in the darkness. Those lights would never welcome her people. Those doors would never open for them again. She thought of Dr. Park, who had saved billions and died forgotten. She thought of Admiral, who had given his arm and his friends for strangers who despised him. She thought of all the humans who had given everything and received nothing. And she wept. In the great hall of the Galactic Council, dusk gathered on empty seats. The living crystal walls had gone silent, their songs forgotten. The floors carved from the hearts of dead stars were cracked and broken. No one walked those halls anymore. No one remembered the debates and decisions that had once shaped the fate of the universe. The elder races were gone, scattered to the winds of history like leaves in autumn. But in the human expanse, children learned a story. They learned about Dr. Park and Admiral and Ambassador Han. They learned about the time when humans gave their hearts to the galaxy, and the galaxy threw those hearts away. And they learned the lesson that the universe had taught them. Some doors once closed can never be opened again. The stars continued to shine. The universe continued to turn. And humanity continued to build, not for the galaxy that had rejected them, but for themselves and their children and all the generations yet to come. They had learned that kindness given to those who despise it is kindness wasted. But they had not stopped being kind. They had simply learned to be kind to those who deserved it. And that, perhaps, was the most human thing of all.